Welcome to today's show, the Citizens Chat Show, where men and women of substance converge to debate about different and important matters of our country. My name is Patrick Kamara. I'm holding forth for Judith Atim. So today, we look at the status of multi-party democracy ahead of 2026 general elections, and within it also shall discuss health of internal political democracy, the party coalitions, political party financing, and we ask, is there a level playing field in Ugandan politics? My guests today I have the head of history department at Kyambongo University, Dr. Robert Ojiambo. I have Mr. Joseph Ochieno, a senior member of the Uganda People's Congress, and from the civil society, I have Dr. Bireete from the Center for Constitutional Governance. Welcome to the Citizens Chat Show. Let me begin with you, Doctor, because you are a historian, you are a scholar. When we look at the internal party politics in Uganda, first of all, do party members even understand, or are they grounded in political ideology that we can say this is where they stand, this is what distinguishes them from the other, and perhaps even some people cannot cross because they are ideologically distinct from each other?
Yeah, you see, party politics was introduced here by colonialists, especially when we started preparing to fight for independence. Of course, they grew up, some of them from pressure groups that were fighting for independence. And then for the case of Uganda, in the early 1960s, we start seeing these pressure groups metamorphosize into political parties, beginning with Uganda National Congress, then the Democratic Party, the Uganda People Congress, and the others. At that time, it looked like they had picked a thing or two from what a political party would be. Up to the time of independence, and thereabout, according to me, they started becoming vehicles of general purpose vehicles. Today, as we see political parties in Uganda, we have discussed on this forum severally. Yes, they bear the name political party, but most of them do not have proper characteristics of a political party worth its name. I think when they were banned for a very long time, there was a very big problem to them, especially they got detached from the characteristic of mobilizing people for leadership, mobilizing people and selling their ideology. So they only became avenues through which people can join an election. And that's why you see, for example, parties are now very active in Uganda preparing for the next election. I think in a few months they have launched about two. There is a Common Man's Party which is going to be launched, I think, this week or next week, and many others will come. But as you asked, to look at them and look at them as vehicles that build ideology, vehicles that mobilize for election and train leaders, to look at them as vehicles that are going to finance their elections and move their agenda. They must have an agenda. Look at them as places where they are training leaders, and therefore leaders emerge from those places to take up national leadership. Is quite difficult because of the challenges that we have in Africa and in Uganda in particular. So generally, when you look at political parties, they are really grappling with a lot of problems. Most of them are stuck at the headquarters, including the NRM party. The NRM party, if you moved around the country and look for its branches, their branches are offices of the RDC, the office of the LC5. The NRM party unfortunately merged with the state, and therefore it uses state apparatus to move around. These other political parties, they are really headquarter parties. At least those days, they would have press conferences every week, every month, and tell us what they are doing. These days, I think it is only maybe one or two that still have a few activities at even the headquarters. For example, I don't know what Mr. Ochieno's party is doing, even at the headquarters. I've not heard about anything, even at the headquarters. I've not heard what PPP is doing at the headquarters. I've not heard about what Conservative Party is doing at the headquarters. It is probably NUP that is active, and they are active because they are preparing for an election. They are preparing for an election. So that is what I can say about political parties right now in Uganda.
Thank you, Dr. Jambo. Dr. Bireete, before we even talk about the health of internal party democracy, do we even have parties in Uganda?
You know, the challenge with our multi-party dispensation is that the general conducive environment for parties to do their work do not exist. Multi-party dispensation basically requires 5 principles or 5, conditions to exist in a country. The first one is freedoms. Once you are not free to exercise your political rights, freedom of association and assembly, freedom of conscience, freedom of, that's what forms political expression in the country. And it's out of those freedoms that citizens will choose where to belong and what characteristics a political party should have. What should be the values? What total amounts to the ideology? That freedom does not exist. The second condition is the rule of law. Do we have fair institutions for governance where that create a level playing field? I'm sure Joseph will talk about his pending court case that cannot be determined in a tenure. Is challenging. If you look at issues surrounding the Democratic Party, members challenged the cooperation agreement. The issue is not determined. And you see what happened at their delegates conference. Some unknown members challenged the constitution of NUP. The issue is not determined, even when there was no injunction. Electoral Commission pressed an injunction on themselves and failed to recognize the constitution. So these conditions, and now, of course, and I know we'll come to that, this amendment of IPOD, the real is that a condition that enables political parties to flourish. The third condition is accountability, a culture of accountability and inclusion. Belonging to any other party other than NRM, you are treated as a criminal. The state machinery is against you. The UPDF, recently they branded NUP as a militia, yet nobody NUP is armed. But they've been sieging their headquarters, claiming that they are a militia, planning insurgency. No single arm, gun even traced after 2 raids. If you look at the level of impunity in the country, cannot enable parties to flourish. The final conditions is a culture of respect for pluralism and peaceful competition, which does not exist. Let's look at the Electoral Commission. The Constitution envisages a free, independent commission that would create a level playing field. The first commission we had, parties had members. We had the Chitanico from DP. I don't know whether we had another person from the parties, but that commission could be deemed to have been independent because parties had a presence at the Electoral Commission. But you have a hand-picked Electoral Commission in a multi-party dispensation without fair competition, even from the public. What kind of level playing field can they create?
Mr. Ochieno, these 2 individuals, Dr. Ojiambo and Dr. Bireete, have talked about, the lack of, freedom. The state is fused with the NRM. When you look at the status quo, I wonder, you as Uganda People's Congress, if you have shed a light in your own, what do you have in there? Do you have a party? Is it healthy? Does it even exist if these 2 individuals make this kind of diagnosis?
No, we are the actually number 1 net victim as presented. In fact, we are the best victim. And Patrick, one of my concerns sometimes is that you guys in the media as the 4th estate are not critical enough you don't raise sympathetic voices to us enough, and sympathetic not to give us any privilege, but basically to use UPC as a vehicle, as the best example of what my two colleagues are saying, in particular some of the key points that Sarah's talked about. But before I really confirm that, I just want to say this, that actually interestingly, Dr. Ojiambo, when I look historically from the perspective of independence, political parties were relatively real political parties. Political leaders were, by and large, predominantly political leaders who were very much driven by convictions, sense of vision, and ideology. And that most of our founding leaders, to the extent that in Uganda National Congress, alone as the oldest political party from 52, by 1959, there was sufficient internal rigorous debate, enough to expel a president, and not on the basis of who went to see the governor general or who dined with the king and which queen, but rather from ideological basis. Ignatius Musazi, our founding president, was expelled for ideological reasons. The issue is who is engaging with the communists and who is possibly being compromised by the guys from CIA and who are basically genuine Uganda nationalists. So I give that historical context to say that it was ever what you're asking us, but something went wrong in between to bring us to where Sarah is. And I also say that because I want really to persuade the young viewers that amidst this mess, the future of this country and the future of this continent must really be around pluralism and democracy. And that's why I really appreciate you hosting us on this very specific subject, because it couldn't be much more important. Where is the genuine democracy? Where is the tolerance? But amidst all that, where then is the question of rule of law? Now, to the extent that NRM went to the bush allegedly because of rigged elections, and basically focusing on the electoral processes, focusing on the absence allegedly then of effective and fair judicial system, and particularly referring to the then Electoral Commission. Can you imagine the Electoral Commission of 1980? NRA called it unfair and biased and UPC lean, which by and large it wasn't. And then enough for you to carry out the mess that you did. But fast forward 40 years later, you're not able to build systems and institutions and set up a system enough to deal, one, with with conflicting challenges facing political parties, but one, two, a national system in which political parties, where they have grievances, they resort to the judicial system as a basis of hope. But finally, Patrick, a worrying element into this, for me as a political leader, is the absence of good winners and good losers, even within political parties. Now, those may be nuanced, some of the things that Dr. Ojiambo and Sarah are talking about, where we unfortunately, as a result of the ban on political parties over a period of time, and then the marketization of politics, which is now very much about money, me, myself, and I, we have members who belong to political parties and organizations purely maybe because of emotions, sometimes because of whom I know in there, but thirdly, what am I going to get from there? So therefore, even where political party leaders away from the state fail in their duties, you're asking me about my political party, but let me just talk about the general one, fail in their duties, members don't actually know that they're the ones who hold power. That, well, let's task our branch chairperson to call a meeting so that we raise this matter, and then we go to a constituency a conference, raise this matter, go to a district conference, and challenge our district leaders or national leaders. So a sense of ignorance there. But for 30 seconds for my party is the best example, the oldest political party, but a political party that the last time we had a free and fairly elected democratic leader was in 2010, Dr. Larotun. Election of 2015 was a nullity. Election of 2020, I am here. That I was elected, the person who saw himself up, you don't see him anywhere, and the person who's actually now running around the country, and you were wondering before we came on air, who is he? Is Jim McKenna, but somebody who's been dismissed by the High Court, Court of Appeal, and the Supreme Court. But he's carrying on with impunity, and guess what? The Electoral Commission officially recognizes him. So where are we? So if that is for Uganda People's Congress, you can actually imagine, Sarah, sometimes we're rather harsh on the newer and younger political organizations, maybe like NUP, particularly those ones who would not necessarily have more experienced leaders and members like ourselves who may possibly draw experience and skill to be able to try and help them. It's not surprising that the mess is everywhere.
All right, Dr. Jambo, is it a problem of us lacking men and women of substance, men and women of values, men and women of principle? I'm asking this because when you look at the party leaders today, they seem to have refused with the state, with the NRM. They're winning and dining with them. And sometimes their members are saying they have been compromised. If you go back to the 60s, that would be an abomination for them to win and dine with them. But they are dining with them, and yet at the same time, like Sarah is saying, dining with an entity that is stifling political freedoms. So is it the individuals who have fallen short?
Yeah, before I answer that, I think one of the major problem is that the parties sort of got detached from the population. And therefore, the leaders of the population...
And so who are the parties? If it's not the population, what do you mean?
And that's the tragedy in Uganda. So much so that the parties are sort of personal properties that then tries to see how they can get the population. And the way you get the population is not because of conviction, as Sarah said, but cajoling them that you're going to give them this goodie, give them this goodie, then they sing you around. For example, in a real political party, somebody would be struggling to buy a t-shirt of a political party because he's making a contribution. I know people who used it to make sure that when they are attacked in their homes, I have been reading, the first thing they hide is the party property, the card, the t-shirt, and because you pay for them, there are things you buy very valuable. Now you are given as a goodie. In fact, there are people I see on the street there putting on a t-shirt for a political party. And when you ask them, oh, you support this political party? He says, which one? I thought I was just putting on a shirt. I have no problem with it. So that is one aspect. But the second aspect is that, you see, politics grows like a human being. And a human being is affected so much by the environment that they grow in. When we were growing up, we used to think that there are people who are naturally dull. Later, we have realized that there is no such a thing that people can be dull because of where they come from or their ethnic background or what. It is not there. It is the environment that shapes the people. I've been telling people, in 1980s, 90s, and the early 20s, people thought that footballers had to come from Buganda region. They used to think so that if you're Uganda, you're a good footballer. These days, go and check the teams, the players who are trending right now are Himbisiwe, Kalisa, Yaruhanga. They're the ones trending. The environment has given them chance that they can now...
You're trying to qualify that some people are not just necessarily down.
No.
I think that's
no.
what you're trying.
I am telling you. I'm telling you with good facilitation, people from Western Uganda can win Olympics in athletics. I have seen this. I saw a man who is giving a lot of trouble from Netherlands. He's from Norway, in fact. He's giving a lot of trouble to Kenyans. He's a pure white guy. So the environment that we are in Africa breeds a very poor relationship between the politician and the people he's supporting. The politician is a patron. He becomes a patron. And the supporters become clients who survive on goodies from the politician because the politician accesses the state. The state has monopolized wealth. The state has monopolized resources. So the politician struggles with this poor person to push them to the state so that they become the patron. And when they become the patron, the party now becomes Kena's party. Let me just use that example. Mao's party, Bobby Wine's party, and so's party. So the people become now clients who think they are going to benefit from the patron. And that's why you see, even the party leaders, they are bosses. The other day I was seeing men, old men and women kneeling for the president of NUP. I thought that would be for Kabaka and maybe this NRM demagogues. But I was shocked that I don't want to mention somebody's name, but I saw people kneeling. So the man, he's becoming a god before even he reaches.
But Dr. Jam, why do you have a problem with that? If Ugandans have chosen to express themselves and their love and support for
They are not
a party leader
by
the way they did. I mean,
by the way, when you look at the body politic of the person kneeling and the one they are kneeling to, it's not that respect you think. It's fear. They really fear. And now they are cajoling him. So
is that the truth or that's the opinion you have?
That's what I get from me.
Yeah,
because now they are cajoling the man so that he can give them the cards. You know, he's the one who gives the cards.
Okay, let me go back to Dr. Sarah. Maybe we're a bit unfair to ourselves. Look at democracy in the world. Even the greater democracies are not any better. The other day we saw what happened in the United States. The British actually changed their prime minister almost 4 times in a year. In Hungary, it's not any better. Are we not being unfair to ourselves, Dr. Bireete?
Well, I think on one hand, we have a situation of citizens' disempowerment. The citizens, out of too much battering from poverty, most of them don't even know their rights. So you have a situation of poverty and ignorance. I hope the issue of disease has been solved. When we were growing up, everybody was saying the situation of Africa is poverty, ignorance, and disease. But here we are.
Still there.
Still here we are saying we don't have democracy because of poverty and ignorance. I hope disease somehow.
Oh, you go to Mulago and see.
Okay. So the disempowerment takes away the democratic rights of the people. Whereas in the situation of the US, and I know sometimes we get culture shock, so there are people in the what I would call rural parts of the US or countryside that also lack sensitization on constitutional rights, on democracy. So that sensitization gap exists. We were shocked with the Brexit in Europe, in Britain. Where, levels of ignorance about the European Union and how majority of the people voted for Brexit without knowing what they were doing. So that lack of sensitization, even when countries are developed, might exist. But I think our situation remains different, that disempowerment.
But Mr. Ochieno, I think democracy is something that we have to keep honing. We have to keep perfecting, every time. It's work in progress all the time. That even greater democracies that have existed for over 200 years, they are still trying to perfect their democracy. So we have to know that. And maybe UPC, DP, and others, you fail to groom leaders because you said in the 60s, you could say, yes, we had democracy, we had political parties. But maybe they never groomed the leaders.
No.
And that lack of grooming is what we're seeing now.
I think you raised 2 important points. One is what I was saying to our viewers. Thankfully, the majority of them, 90%, are young people. The question of democracy is not negotiable. And as Africa, particularly considering the context of how the struggles are happening elsewhere, particularly in northern European nation, in the global north, it's more urgent that we get ours right. The difference with them is that even as now in the Labour Party, they want to get rid of Keir Starmer. You go to a health facility, you'll get service. You get to local government to sort out your child benefits, or you want to sort out your identity card, you'll get it. Birth certificate, you get it. I have a story that the other day, some decent young girl spotted me in her mother's shop. But this is an interesting story, Sarah, and they know you, and you're an exemplary person for our young people, Sarah. And they follow this program, and I think this other one, I think they watched another program, actually, a program associated with Patrick Kamara elsewhere. And so they're saying, you go onto television. This young lady, is doing international GSE equivalent, but she's telling her mother, who's struggling in ordinary business within this town, that she wants to leave this country. She went to Mulago Hospital, and she was telling me, she was actually challenging me in politics, that why should Mulago be having empty buildings when people are sleeping in corridors? This is a young girl, I think who's about 17. She went on and she was telling me, and in fact, her mother was shocked, and she kept on saying it. She wants to leave this country because she says this country is good.
Which empty buildings?
I think one of the new buildings there in Mulago, I don't know the distance, but basically a building which is there and there are no equipment, no facilities, but people cajoled into the place. The girl was asking for, going to Mulago to look for a birth certificate, and she had to bribe these guys with 50,000 Uganda shillings. In fact, I think it's important I should say this. And the mother went to another hospital, private hospital, and they got the thing for within 3 minutes. The mother had to leave and go with her. And she's saying that, look, another thing is, she said this of Mulago Hospital actually, Mulago on the spot, that nurses should retire at 40. It was a bit unfair, but she was making an argument, it's a young little kid, saying that the younger nurses, interestingly, were very courteous. She was there with her mother, and she said, the older nurse, one of them said, leave us here, we're going for lunch. And you can see there is economics here. Bring you guys back quickly because of time. Part of the problem we're facing globally is globalization. Part of the problem we're facing is, cost of living thing in Kenya. If you go to Europe, particularly, things to do with employment and the conflict between capitalism and social democracies, talk about unemployment, then brings in the Brexit thing. Brexit thing was purely a racist thing, and people think it was about Western Europe, and I think I've told you this program before. But no, it was basically about the other, who were the predominant black people. So I found it very strange that the black people supported Brexit. I was in there. You go to Trump's America, when you tell people, I know people don't like Barack Obama, some people don't like Barack Obama because of Libya. And I tell people that no, Trump is the extreme right America, which Sarah's talked about. Extreme right America woke up to the reality that they were under attack by people of color, being predominantly Africans and other races. Number two, younger people, meaning conservative power and money, and where this Elon Musk and the power that you used for breaking the Middle East was. And then thirdly, women. The demographics were changing with the election of Barack Obama, and we need to wake up and do something in part that.
But that's unstoppable.
Now,
demographics have changed and will continue to change.
Interestingly, but Sarah brings the other point, and this is an interesting point. Sarah brings the other point. Traditional rural America have no clue. People who watch Fox News don't know that Uganda exists. So for that reason, you're partly right. The shock with Trump and where Trump is taking them, the American nation people are going to wake up. Most Americans don't know anything beyond America. So in a way, that is it. But if you go to the global north, in Europe, where social democracy by and large works, people discuss unemployment, people will discuss cost of living, people discuss childcare, people will discuss free places for nursery places. Those have been part of the problem. Now, quickly in Britain and the Stammers, once the British Labour Party started playing catch up with conservatism for public opinion, that's the power of your fourth estate, they got themselves into their mini mess. Now, at some stage, that is going to be resolved, but resolved, fortunately for them, democratically. But
Ochieno,
for us here, where at the heart we now
I want to leave the Caucasians alone and the Northern Hemisphere. The Victor Orban and the Trumpos and Bolsonaros, they have their issues. Let me bring it back to Uganda. I think, Doctor, we have an integrity problem, integrity deficit issue, because in our political parties, there's people they know where they belong. Maybe in UPC, in DP, but they also know where they can eat from, maybe in NRM. So it's ideology. It's no longer an ideological difference. It's about grocery ideology. It's a grocery ideology. It's not political ideology. What can I get from this? Believe me, people who maybe have crossed into NRM, maybe they are ideologically grounded into UPC and DP, but because of greed, they think here we can eat. So it's about where you can eat from. And that's an issue of integrity.
Rightly so. And I've been telling people that what we do here is not leadership. Majority of the people you see clamoring on the street there, they're just milk-card politicians. They're looking for those who are in the university with us. You know how important a milk card was, especially when we still had one university, Makerere University. So when you have a milk card, you are safe at the university. So majority of the politicians we see in Uganda here are just milk card politicians. whoever, some ministers and what, they are not there to serve people, because if it was service, many of them would do in different areas. And that's why you find, for example, you find a very good lawyer in politics and is arguing like somebody who is in the Tabika hospital, has some mental problem. You find a person who would have been a very good officer, but is arguing like a criminal. Himself is arguing like a criminal. And for that matter, I tend to agree with you that there is some integrity problem. And that integrity is because of a number of things. As Sarah said, there is a lot of poverty. I normally see these statistics which people are giving, you know, we have improved, there's a lot of change. You know, poverty, you don't need to campaign against or for poverty. You can campaign against an ideology or something, but poverty is something that you just see. You look at people. One time I was asking people to define what poverty is in a rural area, and a man challenged me. He said, why do you ask me that question? Look at me. Look at where I sleep. Look at my children. Look at my surrounding. That is poverty. So when these politicians get out of poverty, they start now becoming very careful. They don't want to go back there. And therefore, they can do anything. In fact, the Katikiro of Uganda said that it is very dangerous, I will translate, to give Mkopi leadership, because Mkopi has not yet trained him or herself on how to deal with power. Because when you Mkopi, you just survive. You wake up in the morning, you get something to eat, and the next thing you do is to look for where to sleep, and so on and so forth. You don't have a lot of ambition. It really pushes us to what Plato argued, that leadership is not for the common people. You cannot give a common man because he does not have time for leisure. Now, let's go back to integrity. Where does integrity come from? There is a difference between ethics and morality. Now, in most cases, many of the people in Uganda survive on morality because they are surviving. Respectful. This business, you see people kneeling, people calling others sable, and what have you. It's not because they have a lot of respect, but it is a form of behavior that helps you to be helped. And that's why you see, if you have been observing, many people, especially the Bantu community in Uganda, these days they don't kneel. They do a half kneel, as if they are going to kneel, but they will not kneel. If they were in the village, they would kneel because there you are putting on rags and what have you would kneel. But these ones of town, they do a half kneeling. Now, with the ethics means that there is a sanction. There is sanction. And that's why you see, for example, he was explaining Europe. That's the difference between Europe and Africa. That in Europe, when you do something, there is a sanction. You will go to jail or you will pay fine. Here, it is up to somebody deceiving you. I've been telling people that most of these churches, if you went there and put a camera that when you enter, it relays what you have been doing the whole of the week to the congregation, churches would be empty.
Are you sure the priest would come?
Even the priest will not come. So you find that we are running our society through morality. And that's why you find even in political parties, it's very, very difficult. In politics, in the government, the law, as Sarah said it, the law has eyes. Unfortunately, in Uganda, the law has eyes. You have seen on our roads, once you have a huge car with a siren and with some lights confusing the traffic officers, they will never stop you. But a taxman, I have been watching, and Ochieno and others, I want you to watch. When you are driving on that road, see people who the traffic officers are targeting. People who are driving these funny lorries, carrying avocado behind there, or chairs or something. When the good cars come, just say, and you wonder, are these doing very well? It's because we are using morality. We are not using ethics. So that integrity goes into leadership.
Okay.
You can imagine a person who is morally or ethically bankrupt, and you make him a leader. He's now the one who commands power. Therefore, he becomes these terrible people who are now making us suffer.
Dr. Bireete, if a leader gets power, he will be preoccupied with maintaining that power. So, for example, we have FDC. They were tearing each other apart. And they're saying the Secretary General and the party president, maybe they were putting allegation on them that they ate money from the state. Well, can we really blame Yoweri Museveni and the NRM for the problems we see in parties, especially when people have eaten money and they are choosing each other for eating? Why have they put a price on themselves? If it's true they have eaten, why have they decided to eat if indeed they have eaten? Because it takes two to tango. You cannot say that the NRM and Yoweri Museveni are killing the parties, yet we see them dining with them.
Yeah.
You see, how did the Museveni's regime kill parties? He started with institutions. All our institutions of governance, including courts of law, are operating like a dead clock. They tell the right thing twice a day. The 22 hours, you can't be sure whether it's the right time or not. If you look at Parliament, the temple of democracy, completely down. Of course, the building is standing, but the leadership, the conduct of the majority MPs, it's not a desirable
So we blame that on one
No,
man?
I'm coming. Okay. So how did we get here? Look what the Electoral Commission I had already explained. So when you kill institutions, I know General Munt has been laboring on systems, structures. So the system is rigged against the competitors of President Museveni. Because where do you go for justice?
Yeah.
The parliament is making laws, including blatant abuse of the constitution. Article 92 says you can't rule against, you can't legislate against something a court has decided on. Then a speaker puts on robes, abusing the robes of justice, of that temple, and commands people. Of course, a bribe of 100 million is given the other day. By who? By the Fountain of Honor. And then, so that's how the systems have collapsed. Today, when you look at people running for parliament, Kamara, you should be an MP. Those oratory skills, the brilliance.
Okay.
I'm coming.
I want to pause there.
Yes.
Because there's a tendency in this country that when somebody sees something good in you, they think you should join politics.
No.
And I'm wondering, and don't we need good men at Kyambongo University?
Of course we do. I was giving an example,
Who will
Kamara.
teach?
Kamara, not all good people should be in parliament. But even if today good people were to be in leadership, what do you go through? The money, the thuggery. Look at NRM primaries, the thuggery. Can you manage that if you're a good person? So politics have been dirtied to the extent that good people are keeping away. The money required, the disempowerment of voters to make them vultures in our democracy. 1,000, 2,000, the biggest voter, if you give them 5,000, they think it is Father Christmas. The bribery involved. If you don't have a dirty heart, can you manage, even if you had money? So the vulgarization of politics has kicked out to the good people. If you look at the other institutions, if you look at the corruption ranking or the report of Uganda Human Rights Commission, what are the institutions, the number one abusers of human rights? They would be protectors and defenders. Police, the army, then you come to court of law. So who will protect the people? Where will good people run? If you are in court and you don't bribe for your file to move, lawyers in practice, you have one case, it lasts like for my brother Ochieno here, 4 years. How many cases are you going to process as a lawyer? And if clients bring you file cases to you and you can't process them, will you get more clients? Because it goes by hand of mouth,
Okay.
Word of mouth. So the whole system is rigged against good people.
Okay, let me Mr. Ochieno, where are the good people in this country? Because when you go downtown, you see anarchy. right from the border rider to the minister. The honorable minister is behaving in a horrible way. The border guy is defying even the traffic regulations. When the police is looking, everybody is doing whatever they want in downtown. I see anarchy all over. And when Sarah is saying the good people, I'm like, we have all fallen short. Where are the good people, Mr. Chess?
You know, it's very interesting because I was just waiting. I hope Comrade H is watching this from NRM. I had a conversation with an NRM person, very reasonable gentleman it was, and I talked about exactly the same question. That part of my concern was dearth of leadership and absence of good people. And I taunted him it was, how dare you, clever, decent, handsome, and, the conversation we've been having about our country and the future. Tick, tick, tick. What is happening? Question of leadership. You know what he told me? This gentleman told me this about 2-3 months ago, that Joseph, you wait. The day Mr. Museveni will retire or be out of State House, I even noted it down. You will see how many good people are in this country. You need to say, not forget about NRM, in this country.
There's a musician who sang a song, Basima Genzi, right? Actually, it could also be that the day he retires or wherever he goes, Ugandans can also cry.
No, but the point is,
because
it was,
you know why? Because the new person who would come and to lead Uganda would have first to break us to make us better. You'll have to break the impunity. You have to put things right. You have to make sure there's no corruption. He will first have to break us. If somebody wants to run things right in this country, he will not be popular with the Ugandans because we have taken we're skewed in a certain direction.
I totally agree.
I totally agree
with you. No,
to make us better.
Patrick, I agree with you. But the point is this, that Sarah was talking about institutions and the fact that this is a dictatorship, and they didn't really want us to go into there. But this is a dictatorship literally being controlled and suffocated by Mr. Museveni, meaning good men and women, together with the institutions, critical institutions, have been sunk. Basically, that's the point. Now, I am saying that in the likely event that Mr. Museveni retires, fades off, whether it's not about the person who now takes over State House, granted, but we hope that whoever takes over will create an enabling environment for men and women of repute to flourish. That links directly to the question that you asked me, Charlie, and I was really bringing the European thing for a purpose-built context. Part of what has actually killed this country is this globalization thing, what is the structure adjustment program. When the thing came, in part, forget about the leadership in Uganda. We sold key aspects of the institutions were marketized and monetized and privatized, and we got used to the politics of profit. So as quickly as we got involved in politics of profit, it is now about politics and rather profit and nothing else but profit. I was giving an example of this question in Mulago, stresses in NIRA, stresses every aspect of national institution, leaving alone those others that Sarah was referring to. So then if our citizens are like this, Uhuru Kenyatta the other day at Makerere University, you remember how he was actually addressing legislators or people who would be legislators, fix the systems, as Sarah is saying, and you will not have people demanding for you. This morning somebody called me, I think, whom I gave a number in passing as one of these many other people, and the young individual is asking me for 10,000 shillings. Somebody whose name I can't sort of remember the face, on phone. That is the nature of and by the way, this is not particularly very young, an average person. That is the nature of politics here. Ali asked me about this leadership thing. No, UPC give credit to those guys. These guys built foundations, did systems, drove politics. They even disagreed reasonably rationally. The parliament after the first parliament around Museveni, around the CA kind of the early 90s, if you go to that, you'll find that many of the legislators of those days were offsprings of either the old parliament or predominantly the old system. Something went terribly wrong in the last 20 years. And so we can't really blame those guys. Those guys built leadership. And from a UPC perspective, particularly if we put aside DP, no, we built institutions, we built systems, and delivered on democracy. And final little thing, Paul Semugera and Milton Obote, notwithstanding everything else, call themselves brethren. And on national occasions, they're able to stand side by side with another and cook. Except that they did not cook and in the night go ahead and share shillings at the expense of their party members.
All right. Dr. Jambo, when he refers to the 60s, when you look at the people who were in parliament, the legislators in the 60s, were actually simple men and women.
And young.
And young. They are young, but not also highly educated. Certificates,
And
teachers grade 3. They are not as exposed as people of today. You have masters and PhDs like you have. We have people who are exposed, who have studied and all these accolades. But when you look in the 60s, these were teachers grade 3. But they were serious legislators and they were serious leaders. So when we have advanced in education, what has happened to our values and principles and real understanding?
Yeah, you asked a question that why do we keep blaming the president? And Sarah attempted, and my senior colleague did so. But I'll just give you a simple analogy. When the owner of the family head starts to steal Bemva, stealing meat at night, and the children see him, that is the collapse of that family. Because that man does not have moral authority to stop anything at that home. They say, but Tata, Liwa Bemva, the other day you stole meat. So it becomes very difficult. So how do you talk about corruption when you are the one moving around with the money, giving people money? Remember one time the president gave money in Busoga and even people stole it there and then. Recently in this, he's moving around telling people how to do PDM, but he's giving bundles of money and telling churches, he gives money to church people, bribing them. You know these days to become a reverend in Uganda or a bishop, that is a TX. So that is one of the problem.
But
so
there are still people who...
People are watching. People watch the president. Instead of the president stopping certain things, he's the one doing them. And I'm not talking about Yoweri Museveni. I'm talking about the president of the republic. And two, when you look at the constitution of the Republic of Uganda, you know, people have praised this constitution. I have looked at it. It is a presidentialism constitution. About 46 articles have given all the powers to the president. In fact, the next amendment, I am guessing, may be to give him power to now appoint reverends and priests and pastors. That is the only thing is lacking. But if you asked why is it that the people in the 60s and in the 70s, with their little education, they were young, they were doing well. It is the system that she talked about. They were working in the system. And that's why sometimes I feel that if Uganda had gone a little longer with the British, that British hand, to maybe 2000, we would be better. I look cynical here now.
Yeah, you do. Because in Zimbabwe it's not any better.
Why?
They left just the other day.
Oh, Zimbabwe, I tell you, with all the trouble they have had, because of the British system that had been created there, still they have the best education in Africa. So much so that today, if something happened and they told South Africa that all Zimbabweans should leave South Africa, it would collapse like a park. All professors. I
want to accept because when you go to Harare,
yes,
despite their problems, they are like 50 years ahead of Kamara.
When you look at, I've been a fellow at Harare. I go to Zimbabwe very often, and sometimes what you hear about Zimbabwe are propaganda things. Just you find that with its problems, with the Mugabe's problem, you cannot compare it to Eastern Uganda and Northern Uganda. I go to rural areas and look at how things have. So a system is very, very important. One time I have a friend, medical doctor. He is a lecturer at the same time a doctor at Mulago. I will not mention his name for his security. So I find him always in his clinic somewhere. I find him there. So I asked him, you man, what time do you spend in Mulago? And he told me that when this country, people realize the importance of professionals and start treating them like professionals, then I will be in Mulago. But if you have decided in a country that you can get a person with the equivalent, Makanika here plus Yandachi here, a equivalent senior 6 and becomes an NRM candidate or DP candidate or UPC candidate and becomes an MP, and you're giving him 50 million per month plus his allowances, salary plus allowance, 50 million. Now, people start going for politics as employment, but not as a service. Sebuguzi, Obwangor, the people you are talking about of 60, went for politics for service, to serve their people. And that's why I interviewed the Obwangor in the early 2000s. He was in Soroti, and you'd look at his house, and you really appreciate that this man did not come on earth to make wealth, but to help people. So when I reached Obwangor's house, I went to the first commander, the Taban or Polot's home, a simple home, and so on and so forth. Today, if you go to a politician's home, it looks like a hotel. You may think you have entered the hotel, only that you are not seeing the name. Which hotel is this? So, the trouble is now politics is not for service delivery. Politics is a job. Many people are in politics because it is a job. And therefore, you don't expect somebody who went to politics as a job to even know what is on the order paper. By the way, if you went to Parliament of Uganda today, they are going in for a session, and you grab the 20 MPs by force, and you ask each one of them, you have a stick, what is on the order paper? You will kill those guys. They don't know. They don't know. They just entered there because they want to go and sign somewhere, and they have put this clocking system. They clock in and they will get out from the other side. But the politicians of the day, you are talking about 60s, these are people who did research. They were not very educated, including their president. Their president had been dismissed from Makerere, although Ochieno now is going to come and defend. And
But
many
dismissed for politics.
and many others, yes, because of his activism.
Yeah.
So he did not have a degree. He didn't have a degree. If you look
But
at
these
the
were
Obwangors,
accomplished.
they didn't have degrees. In fact, the first person who entered that parliament with a high degree was Mayanja Abubakar Kachama. Then later was joined by Mayanja Nkanji, and later Sevana with a master's degree. In fact, people don't know that Sevana were the first people who got a master's degree in economics. But these were not even the best. The best were up there. So I think it is service versus employment.
Dr. Bireete, is there a problem with our generation? The 40s, the 50s, and the 30s? Because when you look in the 60s, people were fighting to liberate Uganda. We're in the 30s, we're in the late 20s, we're in the early 40s. But now you'll see young people in their 30s, in their 40s, escorting somebody who's actually not even healthy, somebody who's struggling even to walk. We are the cheerleaders, struggling even to speak. And yet, he has been there for quite some time. What's wrong with this generation? We're not ambitious. We are not maybe patriotic. How come those other people, in the 80s, President Yoweri Museveni in his 30s was like, no, things are not going right.
Yeah.
He sacrificed and went to the bush. In the 60s, Dr. Milton Obote and his colleagues said, no, Muzungu must go. They fought. What about the 2000s? How about, is this the TikTok generation that maybe they don't care, they don't want even to get into leadership?
Under what system have we grown up, Kamara? Me and you were children when Museveni came to power. We are products of the NRM system. So when I say that the system is faulty, we can use ourselves as examples. Are we able to sacrifice? If we are able to sacrifice, me and your generation, then we are among the few countable out there. Majority are opportunists. If you look at majority lawyers in NRM, it's our generation.
It's interesting, actually.
Very rich. Of course, they know things are wrong, but they are the ones who craft the bad laws, the bad schemes. I was told of how a group of 2 brilliant lawyers made a scheme for the oil petroleum monopoly, and they told the president allegedly that this petroleum monopoly deal will produce for you 3.5 trillion cash out of consolidated fund, your own money. So it's not in the budget, it's not anywhere. And the president said, are you sure? We bring and I sign. So that bill was passed in one day, the petroleum monopoly bill. If you look at systems being designed, this Russia deal for the number plates, digital number plates, I've seen, and I don't know, I've seen ICT experts saying the digital chip does not work. I don't know. But people have lost cars with these number plates, they can't be traced. Some. So if it doesn't work, what was the deal? Money. To make money, you must, in this country, you must bring in a security element, you must overrun the old system, like the system of number plates, then create some security of fear. Fear is a space to make money. That's why the UPDF generals were faking bombs in the country. These ones who have been arrested. So that's our generation. If you look at the MPs, majority of them, like 90%, have grown under the system. So they don't know the system that we are saying used to work. They don't know it. Some of them don't even bother to research. Why is it that we are where we are? I know that President Museveni has declared Uganda as a middle income country. But
is it about to declare just or?
Yeah, but I know it's a declaration because World Bank did not agree with him. But like Dr. Ojiambo said, you know, pregnancy is like poverty. You can't hide them. And I'm not being sexist because I'm a feminist. You cannot hide pregnancy. You can only disguise 3 months, but people close to you will realize that there's something wrong. And by the time
there's something happening.
Yeah, something is happening or whatever. Okay, you are not your usual person.
There's something you did.
You
don't know how to keep a secret.
No, it is not meant to be a secret. So it's like poverty. If you're poor, where do you stay? How do you dress? How do you feed your children? How do they look? Poverty is visible. So when you declare that now all Ugandans are rich, I saw Mr. Kasaja's declaration that by 2020 we shall be earning I don't know how much money.
3.5 million.
Yes, but if you look at the skin and feet of poor children, where is that million? When you look at the whatever, people are poor in the countryside. So you can't masquerade however many times they cook figures. You can't cook. The way people's skin appears, people's feet appear, people's dress, even if you give them yellow t-shirts before taking pictures with them, still somebody will see the sizes don't fit. So the system we have grown into is what has produced the products that we are talking about, that they are faulty. So you are products of a faulty system. We need a system of justice, equality, and rule of law. That is a system that can produce upright citizens.
Okay, Dr. Sarah Bireete, Dr. Robert Ojiambo, and Mr. Joseph Ochieno, gentlemen and lady, we're going to take a break. The Citizen Chat Show will be right back.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media, or to access and use computers, other electronic devices, and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back. You're watching the Citizen Chat Show, where men and women of substance in Uganda converge to deliberate on matters of great importance for this country. And today, we're discussing on the status of multi-party democracy ahead of 2026 general elections. We've already looked at the internal democracy in political parties. I don't know what you think, but these men and Dr. Bireete have been trying to give their views on where we stand. So we will continue this discussion. We shall be looking at the party coalitions, the level playing field, and a lot more. We have been joined by a new panelist. We have the Honorable George Odongo. Honorable George Odongo is a member of parliament in the East African Legislative Assembly representing the NRM party. We are happy to have you. Thank you so much for joining us, Honorable Odongo. We still have Dr. Bireete from the Center for Constitutional Governance. We have Dr. Robert Ojiambo from Kyambongo University. He's the head of the History Department. So if you allow me, let us begin with George. You've just joined us, so maybe it's going to be a baptism of fire. You missed on the internal democracy in political parties, which was quite a heated debate. But now, let us look at the coalition, the party coalition that we see. I don't know what you make of them, because we've just seen two young parties. Well, one of them is very young, the PFF, joining with the Alliance for National Transformation. I don't know whether it is even a coalition, because I don't know whether I can even call it a coalition, because just a few months back, these were just the same people. So if PFF joins ANP, do you call it a coalition? Do they come with the political capital to help each other?
I really doubt in terms of substance, but I suspect that they have assessed the strength of each other against the dominant political party, which is the National Resistance Movement, and found out that individually they do not have capacity to even have a decent competition. So they probably think that by marshalling each other's support, they could probably put up a decent competition against the National Resistance Movement. But again, it comes down.
Where is the support of Alliance for National Transformation?
Again, surely this comes down to political parties generally. The landscape in our country is such that these political organizations do not have sufficient depth. They have not even had time, okay, to develop policy platforms against which we can assess. So the conversations between these two political organizations, I think, is largely about how do we present candidates? I am really doubtful that they have had time to have even a meeting of minds with respect to policy positions. But I think they are all convinced that if we can put our minds together, our structures together, maybe we can be able to put together a good number of candidates in the different constituencies and offer competition. So substantially, I do not see the basis of these coalitions. But they have already told us, and I've heard from the spokespersons, that their common interest is to dislodge President Museveni. It doesn't matter how that happens, but if they can be able to beat President Museveni, the rest they can deal with it after he has left. So this is really the dilemma that our country faces, and it's something that we must all be interested in, not just for PFF, for FDC, but I think even for NRM and the others, that we need to look at the quality of these political organizations, so that when there is a coalition, it is something that provokes deep conversations in the country and gives us a sense of direction of where we go post, if any of them wins an election.
Okay, Mr. Ochieno, we are all calling it a coalition, but I'm reluctant to call it even a coalition, because you have Auntie of General Muntu that was the other day in FDC. You have a PFF that was this morning in FDC, and you're calling it a coalition. FDC coming to FDC, does that become a coalition?
I haven't really followed to the latter, partly because of the nuances you suggest. That,
probably
no,
to be very,
but
direct,
yeah.
it looks like this is FDC real, and then we're calling it coalition. Auntie, with all respect, General Muntu, who many Ugandans, by the way, you'd ask, especially corporate Ugandans, say, who would have been the best candidate in 2021 general election? Everybody would point maybe at Muntu. But the man was just hitting just like Katumba Oye in terms of what he was scoring.
I think if you talk about depth that George is talking about, then that's the challenge facing opposition political parties and some of the things that Sarah earlier referred. If you're referring to whether or not it's basically just a regrouping of colleagues, which I think is what you're trying to suggest, and I was trying to avoid it from that perspective. And I was in a different program somewhere, and a fellow panelist, when I got out, a radical young fellow panelist said, "You're not being hard enough with those people." Then I said, "Look, I'm actually an elder, I'm a leader, and I also lead the Uganda People's Congress, and these are my colleagues, including my colleagues in NRM. So you have to sometimes mind your languages in many of these things." I think it's possibly a good thing that Mugisha Muntu and many of their other colleagues that they left behind came to the realization that politics is more about personalities, and that possibly is in their interest for whatever reason. I don't know the strategic object, that they needed to be together. I have argued substantially that this country doesn't need more political parties, but this country needs more leaders. And starting with the FDC, it's unfortunate when Mugisha Muntu was leaving. I think the focus then was substantially, on one hand, on Besigye, that he was being intolerant and that was controlling the party along the line that Dr. Ojiambo was earlier referring, and that Muntu had issues. And some of the issues that were nuancedly suggested towards Muntu, it's interesting that the same people have now regrouped, because now some of those are suggestions being made at some of our friends who've been left at FDC original. But whatever the arrangement, I think I generally hope that these guys coalesce really around issues beyond personalities, and that I hope that the coalition, is one that is able to present substantial issues that is able to prick the country, so that they are counted on as alternative governments, rather than a group of guys who originally were from FDC, they had the mini grievances, and then one group went to NT, and another now have come back to formed PFF, and they're now together. As I told you at the beginning, political parties can split. By the way, I was talking about the expulsion of our president, first president, Ignatius Musazi, in 1959, when he was replaced by Milton Obote, who had been expelled not because of academia. Obote is one of the best brains this country's ever had. And I don't know when the next person with his equivalent brain will go to State House, including professors being there, by the way. But
just let the man rest in peace.
No, because it's an idea. I've always said Obote and UPs are ideas, and we must always keep referring to them. And it's important that that young people read and study that for the purpose of this conversation that we're having here. So Obote replaced Ignatius Musazi after Musazi had been expelled. But Obote was able to do a fairly smart thing, meaning reuniting Uganda People's Union that was split in 1959. So by 1960, Uganda People's Union and Uganda National Congress were able to reunite. So my point is, parties can have internal grievances and internal contradictions, and then they're able to reemerge. And it's really usually about leadership, but it's also really about the issues that will have caused the split. Initially, we actually thought it was more about personalities, but how these guys quickly regrouped, I don't know. And also was ideological, and a leadership in mind that was able to bring them together. At the moment, we now have PFF and these guys. Whatever the case is, we're discussing parties. A new party, there's DF. There's a breakout from DP, almost from NUP. And then, of course, we have NUP, which was most certainly broke predominant from DP. What are some of the points that George was saying? George was almost like boasting in a nice way that, look, whatever these guys do, I'm not quite sure whether they'll be able to punch us enough on the basis of foundations in order to be able to shake NRM. My view is that whatever arrangement these two political organizations do, they should quickly provide leadership that is able to engage with the other democratic opposition political parties. I hope for us in UPC, we're able to sort out ourselves. In the likely event that I'm sorted out as president of the Uganda People's Congress, I'll be extending olive branches so that very quickly we provide alternative leadership, so that we're able to put Mr. Museveni on the spot on the basis of issues, but also on the basis of his track record. That urgently is badly needed. Of course, the conversation today is about the viability of political parties, where, as you said yourself earlier, the biggest challenge is how strongly rooted we are as political parties. But for the reason that we gave earlier, that once the ban of political parties came and we went in the base, I think all of us been struggling to regroup as genuine political parties. My earlier view was that Besigye, when he was leaving NRM, should have joined either UPC or certainly DP, one of the established political parties, rather than founding new political organization. But we are where we are. How we're able to regroup with interest, strategic interest, ideally ideological interest, to be able to counter the elephant in the house is a big challenge.
Dr. Bireete, I mean, when political parties make go into a coalition, doesn't that also show that they actually do not have very distinct political ideologies? And probably the one element that is big for them is Museveni. And they are making a coalition looking at NRM and Museveni to go. Is it sustainable? Does it even make sense? Shouldn't they make a coalition to say, this is our economic outlook, this is our economic policies, this is what we want to do for Uganda, as opposed to Museveni again? How can you go make a coalition because you're targeting an individual? Does it make sense?
I happened to attend the launch of PFF as one of the guest speakers from the NGOs, and I watched all speeches. But I want to refer to the speech of the lead of the ANT, General Chamuntu, and the two leaders of PFF, Ambassador Viligo and maybe Lukwago. When you look at what they came together to do, I think so far they've signed an MOU for cooperation with the council of 8 representatives from each side, now to harmonize the other issues. Maybe what you're talking about, the policies, the approach. So the MOU has so far pointed out that they capitalize on areas where they agree, and even when they disagree, then they shouldn't be hostility to each other. They should respect that disagreement. So far that's where they are. But in a coalition, basically parties come together, especially depending on the context. I want to use the example of Kenya and maybe other countries where coalitions, like Senegal, where coalitions really, even I think this country, Namibia, coalitions have delivered change of power. So when you have a system like ours, where NRM party is merged with institutions, state institutions, the army, the LC system, the parliament, really even electoral commission, you can't tell which is which. It's just a matter of a name on paper. So the level of state capture in this country cannot enable a fair competition for the other political players. When the NRM is about to lose, then the army jumps in like we saw in Kawempe, even when they lost. The army is the MasterCard of the, like in playing cards. When you throw the MasterCard, then there is the bigger MasterCard with the spade or the one which cuts, the 7. So the UPDF is playing that role for the NRM. They are not on their own. When things are tough, they swing into action. And they swing into action to give advantage to the party. So where does that leave the other competitors? When you see the situation of money, because what is politics? I know it's a game of numbers. People need a level playing field to market their ideas so that voters make an informed choice. Electoral Commission has blocked voter education. They are a roadblock now for the NRM, because NRM capitalizes on ignorance of the people. Now you see the president campaigning alongside the government programs of taxpayers' money, PDM, Myoga, as if it's an NRM thing. They even wear yellow, taxpayers' money. They have even blocked media from covering a program that involves their money. So that is an unfair advantage. The president is on a campaign trail. Nupu was stopped. Other people are corroborated. So where is the fair chance for these actors? So under normal circumstances, they would need, actually opposition in Uganda would have a better fighting chance by all of them uniting. But even when we talk of opposition, You don't know who is playing on which side. We have those who are scoring on their own goal. I don't know, there's this Manchester United player who has come. Most of them are playing the Maguire role. You think they are on your side. They are scoring their own goal. You have a Kenya in UPC with a wife. Now they're on a campaign trail, a minister accompanying a husband. You don't know which goal they are scoring in. You have my good friend Norbert Mao, a minister. I don't know whether you run. If he runs, can you be a minister in government and a presidential candidate of opposition? Which goal are you scoring in? Are you Maguire or not? So you have this situation of Maguire in opposition. Nandara. Now I know people have been saying, is this FDC without Nandara and Amuriat? Because Nandara and Amuriat are also Maguire. So you don't know which side they are praying for. They couldn't stay together. So if they regroup to leave these ones who are scoring in own goal for the other side, I mean, really, who do you blame? But without unity and meaningful unity for change, under state capture, you can't achieve change.
So, Dr. Ojiambo, what really needs to be done for us to have meaningful coalition like we have seen in Kenya, where people come together? Because there has always been an attempt. I remember in 2016, there's something TDA or something like that, but somehow it collapses, falls apart. And PFF have tried, but really they're in the doldrums. They are really down there. They are struggling because General Muntu and others, if you look at how they scored in the last election, it was really very basic. He probably was even politically exposed that he still needs to do more. They've come together, we may make headlines, coalition, but is it really? What meaningful coalition do we really need? What will it take for Uganda? For the Ugandan opposition?
It's good we have already mentioned the Kenya, therefore we shall use Kenya and also draw from our earlier discussion. During Moi's time, when Moi still wanted that seat, there is no coalition that would defeat him during his heydays, because Moi has been the coach of most of the guys who have come on stage recently, including Uganda. In fact, our president is a very good student of Moi survival system, where you create a lot of things and you become a patron. I remember that time people tried Ford Kenya, Ford Asili, DP, and others tried. They couldn't manage. Why? The state had fused with the KANU so much that KANU was like a prayer in some of these religions in Kenya. In fact, people used to call identity card of Kenya Kitambulisho cha KANU. You get surprised when you see it's the Republic of Kenya. How is it Kitambulisho cha KANU? So until 2002, when Moi discovered that he was no longer going to continue, and of course a good man became the president, Kibaki. And he allowed institutions. He was even defeated. You remember when they went for referendum in 2010, he was defeated and he didn't care. He didn't have a lot of control on the army and so on. That is when now coalitions started coming up. That was element number one. Element number two is what also we started with. Do these political parties have areas that they control, so that they have, when I'm coming, I am saying I am coming with Western Uganda, I'm coming with the Northern Uganda, like it was during IEP. There was that inter-party something coalition
IPC,
yes, of Semogerere, Cecilia Ogwal, and others. Because Cecilia Ogwal and others said we are bringing the North. Then Semogerere said we are bringing, and that is what created what we call today opposition vote. If you look at the pattern of voting, it has continued up to today. So in Uganda, we have people who are not for government, and they will vote anybody who they see has that potential. And for example, the votes that Besigye used to get when he was standing the ones they used to give him, the Electoral Commission would give him, are the ones that he transferred to Chagulanyi. Almost by statistics. The only thing that changed was a little the demographics of the country. That now it was Buganda, some parts of Busoga, and a few urban areas. Now, these coalitions would work if we had kingpins, like in Kenya. In Kenya, we have kingpins. For example, for Ruto to win an election, he had to win the hearts of Wetangula and Mudavadi. That Western vote is what gave him that extra 200,000 votes. Otherwise, if he had not gotten it, he was not going to be president today. Then he got the Kikuyu vote by taking the Gachaguas of this world, the Who and the vice president of today, and so on. And of course, there was the other Nyanza. That one is always for Baba. And parts of Nairobi and parts of Mombasa. That one is always
that
for
presupposes that Kenyans are voting according to their tribes.
No, it's not a tribe.
That's
By
what
the
you
way,
think,
it's
that
not
everybody is coming with a
No,
Kikuyu.
there is a kingpin in every region. You know, Kenya, unlike us, Kenya is an urban society more than Uganda. So much so that people survive in the market. They survive in the market. You find that there are so many people in the urban area, and those who are in urban area have kingpins. For example, in Luo Nyanza, you have Odinga. In Western or the Luya side, there was Wetangula and that man. If you go to the coast, there was Joho, and so on and so forth. So in Uganda, we don't have that demography. It is just creating that, for example, now Nup controls the central and parts of Busoga. Northern and Eastern is anybody's thing. Anybody can go there and pick it. And right now, the NRM has built on that, using their propaganda of deceiving people that they're the ones helping them. So, why coalitions don't work here is that we don't have, first of all, voting blocks.
Can I give you some information?
Yes.
You know, in the last elections, I was shocked. The Western grassroots people were told that if Chagulanyi wins, all your children are going to be chased from Kampala.
Yes.
And people believed.
Even Rukungiri, which had voted the FDC, said, let's go back to NRM. And that's the same thing that has happened in the North. They have been told that you vote this Chagulanyi here, you will see what happened to you during that time. So, for me, I really think that this coalition right now, as I said, it is a vehicle, general purpose vehicle, to get how to see which constituencies some people can take. But the state, first of all, for Uganda to have a meaningful election, how do we remove NRM from the state? That is the thing, to separate those two. Does it mean that we need another liberation movement? I don't know.
Let me take it back to the Honorable George, because the issue of NRM that is fused with the state is key. In fact, during the election of special interest groups, for the youth, for the elderly, for the people with disability and women, some people did not participate. They are thinking this is an NRM election. Yet this was a national election conducted by the Electoral Commission. So people thought that was an NRM thing and didn't come. So the problem, and I didn't belong to NRM, is that NRM seems to have fused with the state. And it's one and the same, and people cannot even differentiate. Was that a strategy, or just because you're too popular? That's what you want to say.
You know, civic education is supposed to be continuous. And this very forum has discussed the issue of civic competence as a key ingredient in a free and fair elections. So I think that there has not been sufficient voter education, not just voter education, but generally public education on the conduct of our elections. And that is partly responsible for the perception that the special interest group elections is an NRM election. It is not. But we have also had areas where we have seen very good scores of the opposition young people taking up those. In fact, in these particular elections, we have not done as better than the previous ones. We have had quite a good number of opposition members of opposition in the youth councils. So the key ingredient here is, first of all, voter education. Now, the question of infusion of the party with the state, you know, I think it's a question of longevity. You know, the longer you stay in power, the more people begin to look at everything that you do as being state-inspired. It's a perception. But also that, you see, once you are a political party that forms government, there are really very high chances that you have the advantage of appointing people who support your political organization to lead most of these state institutions. It's a normal thing. It really happens. So then that drives the perception, actually, that there is a fusion. But in effect, it is not. We have had
George, you're saying this is just a perception? It's not real.
It is a perception. It could be. There could be.
When military generals get involved in the electoral process,
so those
when RDCs get involved in the electoral process, that becomes a perception?
No. Okay, now
that becomes what?
There are exceptions. There are exceptions, and we have called them out. There are those individuals who have become overzealous, and in an attempt to try to, to profile themselves as those who really support NRM so much, they would want to abuse the privilege of their offices and try to present themselves as advancing the interests of the party. We have called them out, including resident district commissioners, because their mandate is very, very clear. So I do not wish that the excesses of individuals, be regarded as the practice within the political party. No. In fact, in two elections that we have won previously, the one of 2021 and the 2016, we have had a huge debate about drawing the distinction between the political party and government. And from the NRM side, we have presented positions that, you see, whenever we are out there for elections, for campaigns, we activate our structures, the NRM structures, and we develop a manifesto. It's that manifesto that gives us the mandate of the people. But as soon as our elections are over and government is formed, the people who are running government completely forget that that government is a government that has been formed by the National Resistance Movement. So there is no nexus between the NRM as a political organization and how government is being run. So we have had that debate, and you can cross-check. The records are there.
And you agreed on
so
that.
we have
you agreed on that. Because if you have debated about this issue, we shouldn't have seen what happened.
Yeah, because you see,
we shouldn't have seen what happened.
That's what I'm saying. So you see, what we are saying here is that when it comes to accountability, the public perception is that it is NRM that is in government. So if there are those in government who, for whatever reason, are corrupt, who, for whatever reason, are using their offices to drive their own narrow interests in political elections, the NRM becomes the victim as a political organization. Because the assumption is that you are the ones in government. And yet, in actual sense, and you can go and cross-check this, we have had robust debates and we have had disagreements. We have said accountability on the part of government should start first with accountability to the political party. And that we should be given the leverage to call out those from time to time that are actors in government to be accountable to the party, because we are the ones who elect the government that forms the who elect the party that forms the government. So we are in this thing together, and we must all be interested to decouple the state from the political party.
Mr. Ochieno, if you have a coalition and with probably NUP and DP and UPC and FDC, you agree to work together, would you survive the NRM juggernaut, the whole slot? Because if you really decided to bring one person, you're going to say all the opposition one person. What would become of the people you want to wrestle power from?
I think that would really primarily depend on the key issues that Sarah's raised. Generally, the climate and the environment in which all these processes do take place. Because at the moment, as I said, we have mainstream established political parties whose leaders have allegiances which are suspect, not related to the parties, and the membership of those political parties don't know basically what those leaders represent in these political organizations. Number two, at the moment, again, discussing the internal democratic deficit. These are issues that we should be discussing at branch meetings, constituency meetings, district meetings. I don't know from my own UPC the last time an average, district conference, district meeting was quorate, maybe somewhere in Tungambo. I attended one the other day in West Nile, but it was a sub-regional meeting. But basically the clear fact that on the ground, party structures have no clue what most of the national leaders are doing. Even at the moment, some of the people who are presenting themselves as national leaders are confining themselves to sub-regions, and enclaves. And number three, the fact that in my UPC, for example, our constitution provides that the party must hold at least 2 delegates conferences in every 5 years. I've not been able to hold one because I've been confined by the state and the judiciary. Walubiri, who basically effectively stole the election, I say that very deliberately, took the party to his boardroom. He's never had one single national meeting. Jim McKenna, who continues with impunity at the party headquarters, and has the powers of establishment of the party in the state, including the party headquarters, is now presenting himself as a candidate for president, but has never had another delegates conference. So in other words, actually, if he goes to the delegates conference, arguably from a political party, or from the constitutional perspective, delegates can actually challenge. Basically, he has already broken the rule, even if he was a legitimate leader. So when it's so complicated like that, at what next delegates conference are you going to be having a conversation to say that as a matter of policy, we need to be working with each other? I'm raising this deliberately. That's why I told him Charlie, that in the event that I were actually formally the party leader, it's a very urgent internal conversation that I'll be able to have with my colleagues. But number three, I think that when I was telling you about leadership, I think Dr. Ojiambo and I think Sarah also talked about this much earlier. We have challenges that really the current platform, the current environment is such that I really don't see political party leaders deliberately, genuinely going on to have this kind of conversations. Sarah, part of my concern is this. The issue of political opposition, political parties working together, maybe they do because I've not got phone calls from my other colleagues, Some of these, you don't need to wait for the other one, the Godbuzz first, what was it called, TDA first kind of arrangement. Opposition leaders, if they're listening and they're watching, it's actually genuinely common sense. Robert Chagulanyi should be able to pick up a phone and call another leader of a genuine established political party, my brother, let's take tea, maybe when they've come from a State of the Nation address in a particular corner. And you build ideas from there, individual as leaders. Those leaders predominantly don't exist because most of them are deal leaders for the moment. Those who are genuine leaders, I think some of them are too confined in their narrow way that they think they can get rid of the current system on their own. Now, to be fair, I think to George, in a way, is it about getting rid of Museveni or not? Fundamentally, for the mess that Museveni has done, for this country, it should really be about getting rid of him. But if you do it in such a manner that the object is getting rid of Museveni rather than building foundation for the future, then George is quite right to say that, look, why would an average Ugandan, including my fantastic Kamara lady here, have faith in you that she can relate with you because you're going to help her? Because not only does she want to see change in government, but she wants to believe that you who's providing change has got her future and her interest in hand. At the moment, it's not there. Meaning, conversations are not ideological, they're not strategic. But I can tell you, I think once political parties were banned, and from 2005, when I returned here, when we broke up this system, I have actually struggled to see leaders looking at this nation state rather than the narrow thing that's almost our turn. At some stage, guys in FDC thought they were down the corner. You meet, and I'm saying this for the first time, you meet colleagues in FDC and you're basically nobody because you're a spoiler. Not knowing that actually you've got a net thing to give. I've sensed a little bit of that in NUP recently. I hope that changes, that from now on going forward, the kind of conversation that Sarah experienced, Mugisha Muntu and others, that leaders of opposition political parties begin to coalesce around national issues and national liberation rather than our turn and our kind of grouping. And finally, that conversation must also include sensible, decent friends and colleagues in NRM, because I think what is required in Uganda beyond Mr. Museveni must really be about a genuine transition rather than who wins.
The sensible, decent colleagues, yourselves, for example, before you talk about the coalition, the party themselves must be strong. You're not in talking terms with Jimmy Akena. When you go to DP, Lukwago is not in talking terms of he's moved with Norbert Mao. When you go to NUP, it has just given birth to DF. When you go, everybody, you're just splitting. So how are you going to even make a coalition when internally you're crumbling?
No, I think that if you don't mind, that's part of the point I was trying to make. But mine with Akena is not because I have issues with Akena.
No,
it's because the system has been usurped.
These are substantial leaders who should be talking and pulling in one direction, but you are not.
I talk to Akena.
Most of the time, I'm sure your headache is Akena, and maybe Akena's headache is you.
In a very fair enough point to us.
And when you go to Noob, the biggest headache now could be Mpuga, and Mpuga's headache is Chagulanyi. So what kind of coalition are we going to have when the party themselves get liberated? I just disagreeing at that speed.
Nature usually has conditions to reset that nobody can control. I know that, and when Honorable George, and sometimes we have to sympathize with you, when you are saying the assumption that NRM is in government, you are the party in power. So it's not an assumption, it's a matter of fact. And there is no alternative fact. You are the party in power and you must be responsible for the conduct of government. And if you don't have charge, then the people gave their mandate to air. And you need to tell them that you people, you see, we can't manage. If you're not in power, if you're not the power, there is no two way. So when it comes, nature will always reset. And I don't want Ugandans to lose hope. I know that there is this situation. The genuine politicians are being fought. The system is manipulated against them, but also they should be able to overcome that. Because we have seen it over time. We've seen it in UPC, we've seen it in DP. How do you allow it to happen? So leadership requires that you stop it. And also the focus, the strategies take power. I have a problem. Minus these divisions, I have a problem with the strategic thinking of opposition generally on how they should take power. If they are not, I know Dr. Besigye, for him, he reached a time and gave up on elections, and he was open about it. But if we are not in agreement with Dr. Besigye's point of view that elections cannot help, then where is the alternative thinking and what is that strategy? For me, the strategy for transition, other than a crisis, a transition in crisis, must start with Parliament. If anybody cannot command leadership in that Parliament, you are not talking about power democratically. If a party cannot get 100 plus 200 plus 300 MPs, you are not anywhere taking power in this country democratically. So maybe you should join Dr. Besigye's thinking that elections are not the way. If elections are the way, this opposition must take power starting from Parliament, not the presidency. And if they can't, I want citizens to know that there is not yet a plan. That's my thinking. If you look at Ghana, Ghana reached a time when all the politicians on the scene, Yahya Jammeh had made it impossible for the true opposition, the politicians. They are either in prison, they were either where he disabled everybody. But opposition emerged. And the leader of the NGO group then is the one who defeated Yahya Jammeh. So I'm saying nature abhors a virtue. Leadership will emerge. And citizens out there, if you are for change, never lose hope.
So, Dr. Ojiambo, Robert, if we look at how they are trying to strategize, I see Nandala Mafabi probably is going to run for president in case maybe if he becomes a flag bearer, will he be able to take Masaba land? I see Jimmy Akena, he wants to run also for president. Will he be able to take Lango? I see Norbert Mao also wants a flag. Will he be able to take Acholi land?
Is it a federal?
No. I'm talking about if there's that election and Mao takes Lango, Jimmy Akena takes Lango, Nandala Mafabi takes Masaba land, Robert Chagulanyi takes Bugande, will they force NRM to maybe fail to get 50+1?
If it happened.
No. As I told you earlier, Ugandans already have a pattern of voting. Because for me, without any campaign, I know where I will vote. Because we are not voting issues, we are not voting. we are not voting according to a certain thing that we want to see. We are like people who have formed our football clubs. So Lango may not vote Akena incidentally. You will be shocked, depending on the conditions in Lango today. No, but Mao may find it very difficult.
But in the by-elections, they've done very well.
Yes, but things are changing. I'm telling you. Close to this, in 2021, Akena passed by Whisker. Akena himself.
Really?
For the first time, Akena struggled.
Really?
And
That
he
is true,
had
but,
to give something also for people to vote him. If you see the woman MP is a different one, LC5 is is NRM. In fact, it was only Akena in Lira who was UPC. It is in Apache.
No.
Yes,
But the situation has changed, though.
In the previous parliament, I'm from there, remember? So the members of parliament from the city are all UPC.
In this parliament, 11th parliament?
Yeah, from Lira city, apart from Acheng,
The woman MP.
the woman MP. Yes.
Then
So the rest are UPC?
Yeah.
Then the bigger Lira, LC5 is the NRM.
Yeah, for the bigger Lira district.
Yes.
There is
So,
UPC.
and you remember the city is what Akena used to have. That was the Lira municipality thing, which
So
now
they only have them
they
municipality.
broke into small thing. In fact, where UPC is really strong is Apache. Apache. The others also
Ojiambo.
Apache and Ojiambo. Now the others they are sharing, and Apache, you know why? That is the home where the doctor is sleeping. So they just vote Dr. Abape. When you go to Gulu right now, if the so-called former oracle Gulu went back there, they don't think he's an oracle anymore.
Who is
joined
Norbert Mao.
Norbert Mao. They don't think so. And remember, right now there is a new dimension there of land. So Acholi generally, and you know Acholi also, it was Gulu Kitugum, and but now it is every county there has become a district, and each district has its own king. And Acholi land, unlike all parts of Uganda, they vote according to the opinion. There is a leading opinion leader. They believe so much in opinion leader thing. Now, when you go to the east, I don't know if you still remember what Amuriat got in the east. Amuriat, the one of FDC. It was miserable, isn't it?
It was.
So we don't have king leaders in Uganda as yet, because Ugandans, in most cases, are voting for survival. For survival, they have not yet. What is, if, for example, in northern Uganda we are voting ideology, people would be listening to the one who is going to protect their land and get them out of the abject poverty that is killing them. But no, they will go there, somebody who gives you waraji, one who does what is the one they are voting. Is the one they are voting. And the one who gives waraji in this country, who is controlling the buffet is yellow. So many people don't go for yellow because they like NRM, because of its 10-point program. Because the 10-point programs collapsed long ago. They are no longer working. So that's why the president, when he's moving, is not moving with the idea. He moves with the idea, but with a bag. Yesterday, the other day, he just gave the church in Wakiso 600 million shillings.
Cash.
Who?
The president.
Cash.
And you ask,
Seriously?
why doesn't he, as a Minister of Finance, direct this money in the budget to help churches? Why does he go with it at a podium where he's campaigning?
You must always
It
remember the
shows
giver.
you, it shows you, Moi used to say, "Mkono tupu hailambwi," which means, it's a Swahili word, which means that bare hands like this cannot be licked. You can't lick bare hands. So the president has brought a type of politics which is very, very difficult. That for you to be voted, you must be giving something. So every time you go to the village to campaign, that's why you cannot waste my time. They will start asking, what are you giving us? And they ask people, like you heard the president the other day say, that the reason why we have slums and these ghettos in Kampala and Wakiso is because of opposition. Now, because he knows he's dealing with the people who don't operate their faculty, they operate their stomach. Because if they're operating their faculty, they would put up the hand and say, hey, but you are the one controlling the budget. How come you have not budgeted to remove these things? But they are there. He gives them something small. They dance for him. Some are choreographed there. So your thinking may not work, because that would only work if we are voting issues. If we are voting issues, I don't think. That's why sometimes some people even say, those who think about issues, they have no business with these elections. So until we separate the state and all of us get a duty of educating voters so that the power goes back to the voters, like Besigye normally says, but I don't know how he wants to do it, so that you go and ask for it, these coalitions, what have you, will just end up into the same story.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, UPDF is going to determine a lot of things, the Electoral Commission is going to determine a lot of things, and then the bankroller, the president of this country, the people vote because of the treasury.
So there was a time, I remember, I think even Dr. Sarah was involved. There's a campaign called Honor Your Vote, where they're telling people don't vote issues to power. But I remember that even sometimes people would go and campaign and you tell them vote issues or voting for issues. After everything, they say, okay, well, listen, but where are our issues? and then they also want their issues. So, I mean, in other words, he's indirectly saying that the NRM has commercialized the politics so much that even how much you want to sensitize the people and you tell them issues, they will even say that we also want the issues in terms of the form of
You
money.
see, I think to say NRM has commercial, again, it comes down to what I said initially, that you see, longevity has a tendency to make everything look like NRM. But this country has a history, and I think all of us are culpable. Because it's not that, if that was the case, then NRM would be almost having 100% of the people in parliament. We have had cases where, I mean, you know that in parliament, the complexion is different. I know NRM has a bigger majority, but even those that are there have come from constituencies where people have still spent money. Even where the opposition has come through,
Because
people
you
have spent
campaign
money.
with money.
So exactly. So everybody is campaigning with money. Now, the elephant in the room is how do we deal with the commercialization of our politics? And that is something that will transcend NRM if we do not deal with it now. We need a fresh algorithm in this country, a very fresh one, political and economic and social. So that is the one that is going to create a new, I don't know how I could put it, but we have got to change the way politics is done in the country. And that conversation must be intensified in our different political parties. Within the NRM itself, it is not serving us very well. The idea that you have got to put in quite a huge amount of money is because for us, internal political competition is real. As you can see right now, we are going for primaries in the next 10 days. And people are spending a lot of money. You know, the bare minimum some people are quoting is about 500 million.
You
for
are
you to
drinking
run.
your own medicine.
You get it.
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. Commercializing at a level. You have not yet even gone to a general election. So you're spending $1 billion in a primary.
Listen.
So that's real.
Listen. I do not even want us to make this an NRM, UPC, or DP issue. It's deeply ingrained in our politics. And the earlier we focus on it as a problem in our body politic, the better. Even if you call it an NRM issue, tomorrow NRM is not here. It's going to be sustained. So what we need to deal with is the elephant in the room. How do we, rescue our politics, from this procurement exercise? Because what you're seeing is not an election. Everyone is going there to outspend the other. So nobody is looking at on what platform is this person, campaigning. Nobody's listening to that. Now, in our political party right now, we said we should come up with joint campaigns. But I can tell you that the debate, the internal debate, is that who is going to facilitate those campaigns? Who is going to facilitate the people? The panacea was that if you have joint campaigns, then you may not spend the money because, all of you will be there and the voters will come. But there are those who are preferring that let's go solo, because you are not going to attract people into your campaigns if you are not going to facilitate them. So all these things have got to come in the public space for discussion. It will start with my party, yes, but I think that we should make it a political debate and come out with a national remedy for the commercialization of our politics.
Look at what has already happened in the primaries for the NRM. Just the other day in Zimbabwe, somebody died. Just before you knew it, in Isingiro, there was total destruction. Even vehicles were burnt. In Mubende, vehicles were set ablaze. This is just a primary, for heaven's sake. What does that tell you?
Yeah, one of one of the young ladies I support nearly lost a young person who was helping her somewhere, I think in Kotido, shot by a spear, and it was extraordinary actually. The good news is I told her not to give me any feedback until I got a note the other day last night actually, that the young lady shot is on the way to recovery. It's extraordinarily sad. No, unfortunately, George, the elephant in the room, is NRA, NRM. The commercialization of politics was brought in here, and early when I was trying to emphasize these global context about structure adjustment program. When you come, NRA, you pick institution, you own it, and you turn it into a property of Rajtura. Number two, then you move from there, and then you kill public services. Number three, then you create systems where you now have legislators, whom we discussed much earlier, but definitely George is top legislator. And then number four, you reach a situation in which the citizens after 40 years don't know where to go. You go to a hospital, you get demands. You go to schools, you get demands. You go down to the slum, then Mr. Museveni is abusing you that you're terribly poor. Almost those other things, Shakespearean things that you say that poverty is a sin kind of stuff. And so sort of really that's where we are. But George is right that I think we need to make this a national debate across the political divide. It's been here. It's been here. What do we do? I'm actually much more confident that post-Museveni polity will see us turn around this, because it happened before. Our independence leaders, and I've been at the 1980 general election. George, Elder Joel Alirumara, our former Minister of Commerce, told me once upon a time that in 1980, after when we were preparing for elections, it was elders from Lango who came to him. He said, I was just an average, decent young lawyer focused on my thing. And elders came and said, look, the elections are coming, we want you to represent us. Obviously, so he was encouraged to stand as a UPC parliamentary candidate. He went on, I don't know whether they had the mini primaries, but of course they went unopposed at the time. And so he is a top national, one of the few respectable statesmen and women today. Why? On issues, it was not anything about money. I watched the 1980 general election campaign. I was fairly young, 17, 18. I never saw money. We walked miles basically to go and listen to speeches and watch people and issues, purely politics on issues. So this thing changed. Once you kill political parties for 20 years, take hold of the citizens. Then by the time you return in politics, an impoverished nation but with a special group monopolizing the state, the army, the military, and every facet of the state. Sort of this is where we are. What is it? Personal merit politics, which is about me, myself, individual merit politics. Basically, that's what they called it. In fact, Cecilia used to talk about it in the 90s again and again and again. And she used to warn about it. I didn't know that it would end up like where we are at the moment, where it's about you, the individual, and how many ambulances can you afford, rather than you, the individual, how much can you articulate so that there are ambulances across the country in every sensible hospital. And NRM legislator, actually a doctor, I don't know whether a PhD doctor or not, met me at an event and said to me, after an event in which the deputy speaker was, and told me that, Joseph, you know what? That when I pass Kagadi, at least I can mention Kagadi Hospital, I said, I still don't understand what did the board and UPC see in Kagadi, this rural place at that time, to put that hospital there. So it was not even about the local members, but governments that were planning for the nation state. That died a long time ago. We need to be able to recover that. And when we recover that, future legislators like George and others will do very well at the time. There will be no need for money. But we need to politicize this thing and politicize it across the political level. For the moment, until Mr. Museveni retires, I don't see us doing any better.
Time is not on our side. We're almost running out of time for our discussion, but let's do this. There's something we didn't talk about, and that was political party financing and level playing field. But I think level playing field, we have indirectly been talking about the same. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to give each one of you a minute to make your concluding arguments. Let me begin with you, Doctor.
Yeah, I think looking at where we began from, political parties would be a very good thing to build leadership, to train and mobilize and sell ideology. Unfortunately, it has become a vehicle of general purpose, and for that much, we cannot benefit so much from political parties in Uganda today. Political party financing is another trouble, and for me, I will insist, whether George disagrees, the NRM, and that has been the problem of African governments. They normally want to personalize the state, they personalize everything. You hear somebody saying, this is my country, and I am the owner of the treasury. So NRM is okay, because as I tell you, NRM has about civil servants, 2,000 who work for them. The civil, the whole civil service, public service in Uganda is about 376,000. 2,000 are deployed by the president alone. The president deploys over 2,000 RDCs, cows, because he's the appointing authority, ministers, presidential advisors. So for him, he can afford to mobilize his party using just civil service. Everywhere you see a government vehicle, you know that NRM is being promoted there. In fact, recently, this lady at the Prime Minister's office, Lumumba, was addressing people, and he was saying, how can you serve in public service and you don't support
That was extraordinary.
Yeah, that
yeah.
we
It
shall
was
explain.
extraordinary.
I felt very bad. I've not yet met her. The day I meet her, I want to ask her what has happened with her mind. Because for us, we are supposed even to be non-partisan. Like for me, I don't have a political party. So, Mr. Kamara, you were talking about political party financing. For NRM, they have a privilege. They are financed by the treasury. Wherever you find a civil servant, it's almost automatic that you have to support the ruling party. Of course, the others are struggling here and there. And it is also because of the system, as we said, to not allow them to mobilize. But they also have poor mobilization systems. Most of these political parties, the best way to get funds would be from their members, but they don't want those members to take charge, because like in football, that's why you see teams like Express have collapsed, because the Chirumiras and others of this world did not want to take these clubs to the owners. These were community teams, but being owned by individuals, and that's why you see now Chirio Achiwanuka has taken it where it is supposed to be. So I really feel that political parties need to lay strategies, but we have to first fight for the system.
All right.
Now with these iPod rules, I think they're in trouble.
Dr. Bireete, your parting shot.
Yeah, I want to talk about money in politics. I think we have gone beyond commercialization of politics to commercialization of governance. If you look at the way the president bribes MPs before any legislation he has interest in, so that automatically would take away the respect of a fountain of honor because he's involved in bribery. Even if he defends it when he's fighting back, that all these who are talking also get Bazungu money, which he also uses for 50% of the budget. But going beyond that, the iPod rules, whereas Ugandans thought it would be a good thing to fund parties, and the Political Parties and Organizations Act in section 14 is clear that during the period of elections, money is distributed equally, something that has never been implemented. But during the time of no elections, the 4 years, you use numerical strength. Now the government has added another clause, which I think is larger and constitutional, that you must belong to iPod. iPod is an NGO. It's like saying every political party must belong to CCG, must belong to NGO Forum. It is really a stupid amendment, and whoever made it, really, you will find your place in hell. I know that this time around the target is maybe NUP, PFF, and other liberal parties, and NRM wants to use that money. So there is a proposal that NGOs should also be funded, like political parties. I'm sure if that stupid proposal passed, sorry for my language, they would put another clause that maybe NGO leaders now have to go to Chankwanzi or something. Really, this weaponization of money to vulgarize our governance, it will affect everybody, whether you enjoy it today or not.
Thank you, Dr. Bireete. Mr. Ochieno, your parting shot.
And that if it happens to NGOs, that you must be dressed in yellow. If not,
And go to Chankwanzi.
and go to Chankwanzi. Look, my position is this, that I don't believe that the state should fund political parties. And I hope that is something which is reviewed. In any case, I just really don't hope that it does not go simplistic, that the state goes ahead and fund, including NGOs. They're doing that basically really to wrap themselves. I believe that every political party, worthy of a name, should be able to mobilize resources within itself through its members and other initiatives that all political parties do. And that's what predominant political parties do around the world. I know why NRA did this. They wanted to do it so that they're able to get money, so that they're able to fund themselves. I know Museveni was struggling. Every now and again he used to sell his cows in order to fund the bad politics of money. And it was purely that. I think if you consider the fact that the majority of our citizens are suffering, the money that is going to political parties would actually build hospitals, it would equip them, it would sort out some of the mess in Kagadi Hospital, and it would do a lot more to the young Muganda girl who's now so tired, she doesn't even know that she's the kingdom of Uganda. She does not want to have anything to do with the Republic of Uganda at 17. It's simply because we've darkened our politics, and I think as a future UPC government would review this, Sarah, and I think would ban the idea of political parties being banned by the state.
You're eternally optimistic, I can see that.
Honorable
George Odongo.
We got into a multi-party political dispensation without actually preparing the country for it, or rather that the country was not ready for it. Because where it works, political parties are built around interests, common interests, and it is those that finance those political organizations. So if you have a farmers' party, then farmers have a proclivity to support such a political organization because it serves their interests. If you have a trade unionist party, then the trade unionists would basically mobilize resources to do that. But in a distorted political environment like ours, it's very difficult for you to build a political organization that attracts such kind of people to finance it. So that largely means that if you want to have strong political organizations, then government has got to intervene. Trouble is that it has become a new incentive, for political parties to emerge. So everybody is looking at least let me have one person in parliament so that I can get iPod financing.
It's
Which
not
iPod
iPod financing until the other day.
And it is now called the iPod financing. You get it? So it is a good idea for political organizations to be financed through in our current context, which is a very distorted political environment, that political parties get financing from government to have a minimum, how could I call it, financial base on which to organize. Right. And then they can now mobilize from the others. But going forward, I think we should encourage political organizations to solicit support, open support, and they have got to be as transparent and accountable as possible.
Honorable George Odongo, Uganda's representative of the East African Legislative Assembly, I want to thank you so much. Mr. Joseph Ochieno from Uganda People's Congress, we want to thank you. Dr. Sarah Bireete from the Center for Constitutional Governance, thank you so much. And Dr. Robert Ojiambo from Kyambongo University, I want to thank you. But most importantly, you, the viewer, I want to thank you for the privilege of your company. You might have seen these gentlemen and ladies, sometimes they don't agree, sometimes they may sound even harsh, but they don't hate each other. It's because they love our country more. And by the way, Uganda is a good country. We are good people. I'm very hopeful, eternally hopeful that Ugandans, we shall make it. Good night, and God bless Uganda.